Welcome back to another episode of Out Blank Podcast. Suzanne, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm excited to speak with you. Do you mind introducing yourself to everyone out there listening?
Hi, Rob. Firstly, thank you very much for inviting me on your show. I was quite pleased when I received the invitation. Okay, a bit about me. I started reading tea leaves and having dreams when I was about 4 years old. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, Nana, was my mentor, and she would have, I would have a dream, and she would have the corresponding half of the dream. And on a Saturday morning, I'd stay over on the weekend. On Saturday morning, I'd make the pot of tea with tea leaves. We'd go in and we'd read. Well, she'd read the tea leaves, teach me how, and then we would compare our dreams. And in that way, there were a lot of prophetic aspects to the dreams. And we looked at horses. She has a long history, a family history of horses and horse racing in the family. And we would have a look at the form guide and connect our dreams, and then just have a look at the races that day. And the horses which would come in would either be first, or they were not a favourite, and so they paid big money, or otherwise they were an incredible looking animal who were running. So it was that passion for horses, not that we put money on the horses, it was purely just to look at them and to teach me how to interpret. When she died when I was a teenager, I shut everything down. There was a whole lot of occult movies, and I didn't want to continue exploring this psychic world without guidance. So I shut it down until one night when I was early 30s, a spirit came to me. I screamed and carried on. It was in the middle of the night, looked like a real person. And it was about 6 months of various spirits coming to visit. So I finally got the courage up to say, what do you want? Why are you here? And one by one, they introduced themselves as healers, various types. And they died before their time, and they were wanting to teach me their healing methods. And so that was basically my reintroduction into the whole psychic world again. I joined a meditation group not long after, and the clairvoyant there, the trance medium, became my mentor. That first night I channeled, and basically I haven't looked back. The first time we used to have a meditation circle. I would give readings, practice that way. But then it was in 1998, and there was a psychic fair where I was holidaying, and my friend was there. And so we were going into town to the markets. I thought, I'll just drop in and see how Monica's doing. And I arrived there, and she introduced me to the organizer. And then I went the following day, and it was on the Thursday, the day that they started. Then I went into the markets on the Saturday, and I dropped in, and the organizer came to me and said, I can't remember what you do, but Monica speaks very highly of you. 3 of my readers haven't turned up. Would you mind reading? And so it was in the courtyard of a pub, the fair. So I sat down at a Laminex table, 2 kitchen chairs, none of the or the crystals or candles or even a nice cloth on the table to start, and I just gave readings. And the feedback that I've had from my readings is sometimes years later, oh, do you remember when? Well, I don't actually remember my readings, but as they speak, it's like, oh, well, I hope it helped you. And I always believe that a reading, even if it's not nice news, needs to have some type of positive aspect to help my client to be able to move with whatever their choices are if they accept the information. So I don't like just gloom and doom and, well, you've got to live with it. I see a reading as a healing. And I've come across people who are skeptical of what I do. I have family of scientists, industrial science, astrophysicist, who his expertise is radio frequencies, and he actually built a computer which for communication with man on the moon, for the communication there. So I was always quizzed about how, where, why. And all I could say was, well, the information just came out of there. I don't know where it comes from. With my father, he was always, he was very career oriented. And whilst on my mother's side, there's psychics right way back. So it was about 20 years after I was doing all of this, and I said to my father, I have a career. It's an unconventional career, but it is a career. And we were at a function it was an official function, and anyway, my father comes up to me and says, oh, Suzanne, can you speak to the charge d'affaires of such and such an embassy? He'd like to know about psychic and energy healing. Oh, yes, I'll speak. Wondering, A, how the conversation came up, and B, that my father was comfortable, proud of what I was now doing. So it's putting it into words that people will understand. But in a reading, you don't give your own interpretation. The information which comes through, I do ask the guides whether it, shall I say it like that? And sometimes I get clarification of words, and so I can say to my clients. Now, I've seen shows where the some of the psychics on the television shows and big ones have been brought to court about what they're doing, what they've said. They've had to prove themselves. But I have looked at the way that they present how they ask. They give the information and they might say, well, it's someone up in the back corner, and they narrow it down. But the information has to be specific, not just a generalization. Oh, I've got someone in spirit and they're saying, I love you. That's nice, but it doesn't really tell you anything. So it has to be specific, not asking a whole load of questions, and the client or the audience to be aware of their body language, so that a psychic doesn't get cues as to, oh, okay, they've raised their eyebrow with that one. Maybe I'll try a different way. So you can get people who read body language. You get those who ask a lot of questions. You also have those who get people to fill in a questionnaire, an innocent-looking questionnaire, which then gives material. So for a person wanting a reading, giving nothing away is important.
I wanted to kind of take it back to something that you said in the beginning, and then we'll just work our way across. But you mentioned about being able to, like, you having a dream, then your nana will finish the dream. Were you aware that there was these types of psychic abilities in your family? Like, when did that conversation first happen, where you were introduced that you had this kind of ability, and someone in your family shared something similar?
I just got on very well with Nana, and we'd sit up in a bed on a Saturday morning, and I always made a pot of tea right from about the age of 3, 4. And so it was first introducing me to how to read tea leaves, which I thought was a really fun game. But I'd been having dreams which I really didn't understand, and I must have said to Nana at one stage, I'm having dreams. I don't know what they mean. And so Nana's explained it to me, and then from there, I suppose the duality of the two dreams. And I still have her Dream and Tea Leaf book, which was from, I think it's about 1903, 1905. It's almost dust now, but it's a treasured item.
I guess after she passed and you took a break from the psychic abilities, when you finally decided to get back into it, what's your scope view of psychic abilities? I mean, obviously I've heard the wide-ranging stories and kind of experiences that people have had, but I've only been able to really justify what I could possibly do that I can't even explain, which is just like getting deja vu. I think we all get it at a point. It stops, but mine never just completely stopped. And the only time I ever get them is when I'm dreaming, which is rare, but it's for me, I know what that is. But I don't know any of the other things that people can use, crystals or any of these types of stuff. So I'm curious, when did you start researching more about psychic abilities or learning more, and how difficult was that for you to do? Because, well, I don't know when you started to pick it back up, but I'm guessing it was before the internet. Like for me and my generation, we all have the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. I was lucky with the like spirits who came to me most nights, and there was the regular meditation with the trance medium. We also had a spiritualist group, and so I was around like-minded people. I also studied Reiki, and the group that I'm with, the Usui Reiki Network, is it focuses on the metaphysical. So I was attuned over a 20-hour weekend for hands-on healing, and then a number of months later, I was drawn to doing the distant healing. With that particular group, once you've done like the Reiki 1, you can attend any workshops, any seminars in Australia where I live, or wherever they're taught in the world. And I actually attended a seminar when I was in Singapore a couple of decades ago. And then when I was attuned with the Reiki 2, I could then also go to any of the Reiki 2. Now, the best thing about that was each group had different metaphysical aspects with their concerns, their traumas, what they were bringing to the seminar to develop themselves. So an understanding of the metaphysics was there. In 1986, I started Taiji. I had a condition and basically should have been in a wheelchair. Probably before 1990. I was getting very close to that. I started learning Tai Chi and Qigong, and then a couple of years later, I started studying with Grandmaster Chen Xiao Wang, and he's a national treasure, a world expert on chi flow, energy flow. So I was taught that how to see energy move through the body. My feet went from being deformed to being straight. My foot doctor had said he'd seen people's feet strengthen with Tai Chi, but he'd never seen them change structure before. So I was getting, it was a mixture of training in different energy forms, and all of that heightened my understanding of how energy moved, the connection for spiritual work, and gradually I went through ups and downs, but I started off as being clairvoyant, which means clear seeing. I've always been clairsentient, which is a sensing, a feeling. So, for example, if a person comes to me who's died, I'm likely to be able to feel what they died of. I will get the pain or a sense of the pain, which will indicate how they've died. Sometimes they'll tell me. I've also got clear audience, which is clear hearing. So sometimes I hear spirit words, or the words come as a thought. The clear smelling and the clear taste are less abilities for me, though I might smell a particular scent, and I'll tell my client that I'm getting this scent and I'll describe it, and more often than not they'll say, oh, that's so and so. And the other one is claircognizant, and that's just a knowing. And a lot of people have that when they get a feeling in their tummy, butterflies in their tummy, and they make a decision based on that. And then they find out later that it's good that they've gone with that gut feeling. Deja vu, which you mentioned, again, that's a lot of people dismiss that. It can be that, well, I'll give you an example. I was driving along the side of a mountain, and I had an image, and I thought, oh, so what would I do in that instance? And I worked, and this was like probably not split second, but it was image, and I knew what to do. Rounded the corner, and there it was, and I knew exactly what to do. I had a cliff on one side and an embankment on the other, and because I'd already done the manoeuvre that needed to be done, I was able to stay on the road. So with deja vu, it can be something which is about to happen, or it may be a crossroads. So at that point, I see people are trying to get to somewhere, and I see that as a mountain, and you can either go straight up the mountain, which seems to be, nice and easy, or you can take a windy route. I find that with the windy route, or you may be taken off onto tangents. I find when that windy route comes back to the straight one, there's a deja vu moment. I think I've been here before. And there's a lot of science with string theory, looking at the universe, being able to see almost to the Big Bang, seeing far away, getting messages from craft, which is at the edge of the solar system. And getting that information right now with something which is light years ahead or light years behind. So I see the psychic, someone with psychic abilities, and everyone has that. It just, some people shut it off, whether it's their intuition or greater abilities. You're a receiver right now, and you're just getting the energy from all different parts. And so, there's
Well, do you
it
believe
can't be proved.
you mentioned it, but do you believe everyone has an ability to it, or do you believe that it's just specific people, like kind of a you use it or you lose it mentality?
Everyone has it as a child, up to about the age of 6 or 7, to some degree, whether it's an imaginary friend, whether it is knowing things, the seeing colours around people. But by the time they're about 7 or 8, along with Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, they tend to grow out of that ability. Sometimes it comes, there's that intuition which stays around, and but that tends to be in retrospect, oh, I should have trusted myself with that, rather than, oh, okay, well, I'm being given this information and I'll go with it. But you still have free will, whatever comes as a message, a feeling, however the delivery is, you still have free will to accept it, reject it. If you accept it, then you still have free will along the decision path. If you reject it, if it's something which is really important, your destiny, your fate, whatever, then you might get another message which is just a little bit stronger, until you're not only getting a tap on the shoulder, but it's like, wake up, you need to look at this.
When it comes to
Does that
psychic, yeah, it does. When it comes to psychic readings, what do you find is the best tool for you to use to be able to give someone a proper reading?
I just connect to spirit. So, for example, where, say if this was, instead of an interview, you were wanting a reading, I would just be sitting here. I would put us into a protective space, and then I would connect with my spirit, and then I would go into a quiet space, and then I tend to see, it's developed that I see a cliff, the way the waves are moving, whether it's a boat, whether it's a beach, and I get the energy around the person by this visual image. And then I get a time frame of when it started, what's happened. And my client invariably says, and I only ask for a yes, no, don't know, or go on. I don't want any information at all. My eyes are closed, so I'm not getting any visual feedback from my client. Some could say, well, I could read their voice, but I just ask for a nondescript, one syllable, yes or no. And then I get ways, maybe tools, indication of like the energy around the next step. And basically, my readings are energetic. So if someone comes to me and says, I want to know about my career, I might not be able to channel through, oh, well, you'll be going to a new job in 5 years' time, but you're going to be promoted in 18 months. For me, it doesn't work like that. So, for example, using that example, spirit might indicate that there is the energy is turning round and round. In about 18 months, there'll be a decision. I see a new desk, but it won't necessarily be you will be moving, because that's still the person's choice. Even if the opportunity for a job, whether it's a sideways move, upwards move, or something completely different,
Obviously, like different psychics use different forms, like crystal balls, tarot cards, and other things for their readings, but you don't find that you need anything to be able to get a proper reading on anybody?
No, I do have a lot of different tarot packs, but I find when I um, use tarot cards, I get channeled information, and so the cards would be more for my client to feel comfortable with something tangible on the table rather than this person sitting in front of them and just getting messages.
Do you think that any of them work, or do you have any that you just don't you feel less attracted to compared to some that you feel more attracted to when it came to different devices that people use? Like I've heard something with a pendulum, and then another thing. Yeah, the tarot cards are most attractive to me, but I've never bothered looking at any of the crystal ball stuff. I mean, a lot of the stuff gets tossed around more in popular culture than I actually see people using it.
Yeah. Um, at the psychic fairs, the tarot cards tend to be the favoured. The runes, runes, the are sometimes used. They're a Scandinavian type of, well, the background to that is the Scandinavian uh, pictogram. And the pendulums, I use them, but not for professional readings. And I have a friend, we've lost contact. She moved away, that, but she just opened up a box with all these pendulums in it. And I was lucky enough at a healing weekend to be the person on the table, and she did a pendulum healing. And it was very, very powerful. And someone who is skilled with pendulum, uh, they can, the types of energy that they are able to work with is of a high order. But most people who use a pendulum are, you know, yes, no, goes round, don't know, um, or a maybe. And, depending on whether the pendulum swings a little bit or whether it's a large circle. And someone might get guidance as to the next questions to ask, or if they're not connected psychically, but just using the pendulum with like a list of questions to ask. Yeah, there are different ways. With a tarot card pack, anyone can pick up a pack of tarot cards, um, teach themselves, go to a course, so they know the book language. They know the different spreads, but they're not, it's from an academic perspective rather than a connected to spirit perspective. And it's like astrology. You can have someone who has the program with all the charts on the computer. They put in the dates of birth and time of birth, place, and all this information comes up. and they can tell you about your ascendants and which planets are in which house. But someone else, my sister's an international astrologer, and we can be discussing things, and she will be able to say where a planet is, the various other uh, cosmic bodies are, the interaction of them, and then she'll go to her charts to basically confirm what she's getting with where everything is in the sky. Another late friend was his work was with asteroid astrology, and that picked into quite detailed aspect of an astrological chart. Those are learned modalities. Now, when my sister lived overseas, I would, it'd be like I would be doing readings at a psychic fair, and it'd be, oh, I could just press go on a, well, in those days, tape player, because it was like in 6 months' time, 7 months' time, in the same type of energy. So I'd ring Julianne and say, what what's happening there astrologically? And then she would come, say, oh, well, you're picking up on this, that, or the other. And so you've got different stages of people. Now, someone who is just interested in doing charts may never want to do that whole complete connection to the cosmos and astrology. And just the same with the psychic world, you've got people who are quite content to use whatever divination tools they've decided on and just do their readings with the tools. And then you've got someone like myself who connects. I've actually had to put boundaries so that if I'm driving a car, I don't get bombarded with messages. And except, so I've said, unless it's to the car, the road, me as a driver, I don't want any messages. The same with walking through a shopping mall. I used to get, it was almost like a movie of information about people. And it was like, whoa, what do I do with the information? So I then said, look, give me a word. And then if allow the opportunity to arise, if I'm meant to give someone a message, and it'll be like I will be standing at a shop window, and a person will come stand next to me, and next thing they're telling me their life story, and I'll be able to put that information that I'm getting
Isn't that
into
called being an empath?
yeah, that's another term for it. Yeah.
Do you find that from when you first started openly kind of expressing your psychic abilities and belief into this, that over the years since then, that the culture has been widely changed? I mean, what are your thoughts on the whole interest in psychic abilities? It's like true crime. Everyone's interested in it. It's like I don't know why there's an obsession with all of us to want to know about this like extra layer to the life that they have or something which I always found just interesting. I'm interested in it too. But to me, it was like, I don't know, I see so many shows now that I don't think do it necessarily a good service, like the stuff you see on Hollywood and all that. But I definitely think there's a lot of people that are interested in the subject, despite the number of people that openly will speak about it, because there's a large amount of people that don't talk about this stuff because they're afraid. I think at one point, I mean, they were burning people for, having some type of ability that nobody could understand.
Yeah, well, the Witchcraft Act of 1735 has only been repealed. I think in the UK it was around about 1951. Here in Australia, because we just imported British Constitution, um, we it was two, well, 1951, there became the Fraudulent Mediums Act, which was then only repealed in 2008. Here in Australia, one of the laws against witchcraft being a psychic, in one of our states, it was only repealed 10 years ago. In the States, I was reading that there are some states that still have the aversion of a law against psychics and all of that, mainly to do with fair trading, fraud, to keep fraud out of a that people are vulnerable when they go to a psychic, and to try and stop people being scammed um, for that type of thing. Um, Here in Australia, we can only advertise psychic services as for entertainment. So it takes away from, spirit is telling you what to do. Well, let's start. Spirit, it's not spirit if the message is saying you must do this. So, and I've got off track.
Well, when it comes to the ethics of psychic services, don't you think that obviously the community, the actual true people that are out there trying to do good with the psychic abilities, don't you feel like they moderate the discussion and kind of the discourse of how they sell psychic services? I mean, I see them policing themselves more than anybody, calling out scam artists and people like that, because I'm sure you've come in contact. There's so many scam artists involved in the psychic stuff. And it is because of the vulnerability aspect, which makes it difficult because I believe some people are true to what they're trying to do in their arts. So it makes it a complicated discussion when we talk about should it be legal, should it be illegal. There's a lot of kind of gray areas that I just don't think we don't have anything besides the community really regulating.
Yeah. The um, There are organisations that, and I belong to the International Psychics Association. They have their own code of ethics. Somewhere like the Arthur Findlay School in England, they have their own code of ethics. Where people aren't a member of an organisation or a teaching establishment, you'll find that most will have their own code, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. You do have, and I've actually encountered in a reading, apparently well considered. It was at a psychic fair. The fairs vet the psychics before they're allowed to be part of that group. And when I sent an email to this particular psychic, she said, "Well, you're the first one in all the years who, hasn't appreciated my work." And not quite those words, but that was the gist of it. So when I wrote a book, Ethics of a Psychic Reading, because I was seeing a lot of people who it's only energy, it won't hurt you. It's given, I'm telling you this, in a light-hearted manner, or you get people who it's a party trick, and you're potentially dealing with people's lives. It's like saying this might happen, and all of a sudden the person is concerned or looking forward, depending on what it is, and then disappointed or don't have the skills, the tools to be able to cope with whatever has eventuated. So I wrote the book to basically inform people what to look out for when going for a reading, what to be aware of, much like I said earlier with the not giving anything away. It's being skeptical is healthy. Not too skeptical, but you don't want to be gullible. And sometimes the information which comes through can be quite concerning, and it can play on people's minds. So a psychic has a big responsibility to be able to convey the information in a manner that is not going to be detrimental to the client. Years ago, it was a 2-day psychic fair, and this person sat down in front of me, and I was saying, this, that, and the other, and I was given a date. And the only reason I remember this is because when I left, I was really concerned, and it played on my mind all night. But it was an end date, and I said, and whatever the project is, I'm not being told, but it's going to come to an end. Anyway, at the end, the client said, I've got this medical condition and it's deteriorating. And with that, she up and left. So that whole night was like, I hope that end date didn't mean that was the day she was going to die. Anyway, I said to Spirit, look, if she needs clarification, please arrange that she's able to get, bring forth a message so that I can give her to clarify, so if it does happen to be the end date, then what things to prepare herself. Anyway, in the morning, this person was there. They were about to go to another clairvoyant for a reading, and I said, "Oh, if you see no one sitting in my chair at any time, come across because I've got some more information for you." Anyway, she went, and my next client was late. So this woman came, sat down, and it was it had nothing to do with her health. And Spirit gave what that was about, with that particular day. And then she said, "Well, what about my health?" And I said, and I found with myself, with my own readings and with others, because she was so focused on whatever it was, the situation with her health was not energetically to the fore. So I have major health condition, and when I get readings, often it's, anything about my health? Oh, yeah, you've got whatever. But where there's energy focused on other things, then something like health won't come to the fore, even if, and I have seen darkness around a person, and I found afterwards in the reading, again, I don't remember what's in readings, just that I do remember she was quite content when she left. So obviously in the reading, there was something which was uplifting for her. So someone else might say, "Oh, you've got black all around you, oh, that means death." Well, black doesn't necessarily mean death, but that's the perception that a lot in popular culture, that's the colour which is associated with death. But it can be a rebirth, a void, ready to rebirth. So there are different ways of looking at energy within readings. So to know whether a person's a charlatan or genuine is difficult because there is the diversity of it. So again, where sorry, that's gone.
I'll just ask you kind
Does,
of one.
does that answer your question, or?
It does. I was going to ask you one final question here, but over the years and where you see the tide is kind of turning, do you see a more openness of discussion amongst average people about having these types of abilities? And do you see an openness to the academic community for looking into this more? I'm seeing a lot less skeptical people and a little bit more people that are actually like there might be something here.
Yep. Certainly with the influence of Eastern philosophies, Eastern ways of looking at energy, the way it affects people, the there is a more openness. Also, with some of the shows, the movies, shows like the one where they had psychics come to with all different types of ways of using psychic abilities. Like, I'm no good at, what card is this? When they did it was meant to be a lost boy, and the TV show showed this boy with a dog. They knew where he was, and the psychics had to use whatever skills they had to try and find him. Anyway, I was watching and I thought, that boy knows he's safe, he's got the dog, so the energy of someone scared is not there. So in that instance, for me, it'd be a case of, all right, I want to find the child who has been hidden for this show. Then that would be the energy that I would work with to find the child. In as far as openness, yes. I mean, with, academic world are doing a lot of parapsychic
Parapsychologists.
research. There has always been that since basically the 1950s, in particular looking at what being psychic, having that connection is. I mean, remote viewing is another ability, but that can be, someone can be trained to do remote viewing, but for that removes the empathetic aspects. So you're just going in at cold. Whereas with remote viewing, for example, when I saw where a plane had gone down, being able to connect for them to be rescued. Where was it? Oh, yeah. So with the, as I was mentioning before, with out into the universe either side, there's a lot of research which I've always said one day science will catch up to the psychic world. And there are lots of parallels within scientific research to the abilities of psychics. There's a lot more discussion, and certainly where you have, I was teaching Taiji at a science conference, this was years ago, and one of the lectures was to do with energy and psychic work, and there was a mixture of beliefs within the room, but it was interesting with those who were purely skeptical and not ready to see other aspects. They could still be skeptical, but to be able to see a range, to be able to be informed, to make decisions. There is still a fear about like, oh, will people be able to read people's minds? Um, the whole thing about not being able to know what is real, what is not real, which is increasing. Um, yeah, I think that's still got a long way to go before being psychic, being able to offer psychic information uh, is accepted as an ability. Where a person has natural ability, that's be like someone who's a surgeon. They don't automatically know how to be a surgeon. They have to train. They've got the ability with the fine motor skills in their hands to do that work. Likewise, someone who has that psychic ability, it's not just a matter of developing. There needs to be the guidance, the mentoring um, to develop further, so that it's you can offer a professional service.
Susan,
And
I was gonna ask, when it comes to specific interactions with academics, do you find that they're open to talk to you about this personally?
it varies, as with anything. And when I used to go to parties, I'm never one for just general chit chat. There was always someone there who would get into a discussion about this type of uh, thing, and I would find that all of a sudden, from just me and another person, it would be a larger group, and there would be a discussion going, and it would. I've had discussions with academics. The and it all depends. The way my approach is to educate, um, to expand awareness so that understanding can happen. I've been lucky with my father-in-law, who is the astrophysicist, and with my book, um, he was the technical advisor, so that the words that are used in the psychic world are borrowed from the scientific or just general words. And so I explained from the psychic perspective, and he explained from the scientific perspective. So at the front of my book, it has um, it's sort of like a glossary, but a little bit more in depth than a glossary, so that you can see both the scientific and the psychic. There's the crossovers. It's not pseudoscience. Um, I see them as separate, but also combined.
And one final thing here, wrapping up, but the where can people find your links? You've given me enough of your time.
Okay, I've got a website, Suzanne, Suzanne hyphen Newnham, Newnham.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter X, but I don't really. Um,
Use
it's
it.
not one of the social things that I look at it when other information comes through. I'm also on LinkedIn. I've got an article in which is available on ResearchGate. My book, I can, oh, it's back the front, but that's it. So the if they type Ethics of a Psychic Reading, Suzanne Newnham, it'll come up, my name. And if people do go to my website, go to the contact page, say that they've heard the podcast, I do have a gift of 3 of my articles that were written for the International Psychics Association magazines, yearly magazine, the 2016, 17 and 18. One's on double readings, and another is ego, talks about ego and difference between that and confidence. And the other one is called Ready, Set, Psychic. So where the person has psychic abilities, or goes to a 10-week everything you want to know about being a psychic, and then does a bit of practice and they feel they're ready. So that article explains what being a professional psychic is all about.
And I'll make sure I'll link all your links in the description. Any social media links or anything I find, I'll make sure I put in the description for people to be able to click. Suzanne, it's been a pleasure chatting with you again. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank. Stay tuned for next episode.